Hello, everyone. My name is Taquan Middleton, and today I'll be talking about the famous architect Louis Sullivan. Louis Sullivan was born in 1856 in Boston, Massachusetts. He was known as the father of modernism as well as the father of the modern day skyscraper. Louis Sullivan is very influential because he was the first one to innovate the skyscraper and the elevator and put them together. It was important because tall buildings, people didn't want tall buildings because people would have to climb up the stairs. But Louis Sullivan was the type of person that was like, you know what? I'm going to give them something. I'm going to, use one of the modern inventions of our time and incorporate it into my building and design. So he was really a big, good guy for that. He grew up in Boston, and as a child, he always was interested in building things with blocks and things like that. His family owned a farm, and oftentimes he would just walk around downtown Boston and just admire the buildings and the vast architecture that surrounded his environment. It was important to his overall development because he noticed that he loved buildings. As he was a teenager, he went to France. He went to France and studied Beaux-Arts. This helped him with his organic nature, which he used inside of his buildings. This is a model that I created, and the model is basically a replication of a building by Louis Sullivan. Now I did this by hand, and as you all can see, it exemplifies his usage of spandrels. Now what a spandrel is a piece of material that spans to cover the floor. In each one of my designs on my board, I show a piece of horizontal material that signifies the floor. His spandrels are usually dressed with like organic vines and leaves, which he learned back in France when he studied Beaux-Arts. He was one of the only architects to incorporate spandrels, organic nature of the spandrels, and his usage of the spandrels of every level to express the verticality of a building. Louis Sullivan was one of my favorite architects, and he is extremely, extremely, extremely influential to me because I'm an architect myself. He also designed a building called the Chicago Theater, and the Chicago Theater was one of the first buildings to use what we know today as the Con Edison light bulb. Now, Edison designed the light bulb in the late 1800s to early 1900s, between that time. Now, when he designed this light bulb, Louis Sullivan was so fascinated with this creation that he used thousands of these light bulbs to dress his entire inside of the theater. Now, when he did this is super because people were like, wow, this guy is innovating and he's using new technology of his time. Come on, can't beat that. So today, we have big skyscrapers. We don't even use a lot of light bulbs nowadays. We use fluorescent lighting, LED lighting now. But he was the pioneer of what we know today as the big architects like Frank Gehry and Daniel Libeskind and stuff like that. He was a pioneer of people like that. Frank Lloyd Wright also worked with Louis Sullivan. Frank Lloyd Wright created the building Fallen Water. Fallen Water is known today as beautiful work of architecture. It actually inhabits the nature and uses the waterfall as the building. So cool, so cool. I wish you guys could get out to see that at some point. Louis Sullivan is, I wouldn't say an idol, but I would say a role model to me because I feel that I'm an architect and I need to be innovative. So as long as I can incorporate new technology in my building, I'll be more than happy to create a fabulous work of art like he did. He did many buildings like the Guarantee Building, the Union Trust Building, Auditorium Building that I spoke about in Chicago, the National Farmers Bank, People Saving Bank, and many, many, many more. Louis Sullivan is not only a pioneer, not only an inspiration, but he's an architect. Because an architect makes sure that we can enjoy the space that we walk through. It's not too vast, not too small. You can feel comfortable, and we can get fabulous views from like a high-rise level. He also came up with the term form follows function. Now, what that means is whatever function an organism has, the form has to work with it, like a watch. A watch is made to tell time. A clock is also made to tell time, but a watch is for humans, so we can tell time mobilely, like while we move around. So it's made to wrap around our wrist. A clock is made to just sit on a wall. So basically, the form of a watch and the form of a clock, even though it's the same thing, they have two different purposes, which means that the form of a watch follows the function of the watch. The form of a clock follows the function of a clock, just like the form of a TV follows the function of a TV. This was very, very important because as he continued his life as an architect, as a big architect, he created these buildings, and these buildings were like superb. He didn't want to be like the neoclassicists. Now, when I say neoclassicism, I'm referring to buildings like the White House, the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. That's neoclassicism. It's connected back to our old roots in Europe. He wanted to create something that exemplified America, new, energetic, and straight up, great. So he created a building it was first a building called the Guarantee Building, which is right here. And the Guarantee Building used the spandrels that I mentioned earlier. Now, when people from Europe seen this photo of the Guarantee Building, they said, wow, that's a skyscraper. That's what they called the skyscraper. Now, even though it was a skyscraper, a lot of people didn't know what went on inside the building. So when I lived in 1899, and I lived on the 6th floor, and it was cold outside, and I wanted to get a carton of milk from the store that was 4 blocks away. When I got back to my building, I didn't want to walk back up the stairs. That was exhausting. So the elevator is what helped us. Now Otis designed the elevator, and the elevator was like the most fabulous creations of our time, because we still use them today. Not so much the light bulb. We use different forms of the light bulb, but the elevator still exists, which means that was a marvel in its own as well. Louis Sullivan was just fantastic, and I hope you guys understand the importance of my speech today, because at some point you'll use the elevator, at some point you'll go into a skyscraper, you'll admire a skyscraper, you'll be like, wow. But when you go to admire that skyscraper and you look at the architectural elements that make up that skyscraper, always remember that Louis Sullivan was the pioneer of that engineering marvel. And today, it felt good to really talk about this, because I will be a famous architect one day as well. And I would love to create something in which people will admire for centuries to come. He died in 1924. He died in a room all alone by himself. No family, no kids, because he was stressed. But he had a lot to show for his work and his life. Although he died at a young age, he's trained magnificent architects, as I mentioned earlier, like Frank Lloyd Wright. And he's also left a blueprint for us to follow. A blueprint for future generations to follow and innovate as time go on. So not only has he created a way of life, he's created a just masterpiece and a master plan for us to, keep it going. And it's amazing. He not only has he created buildings, he created tombs for big rich guys. It was like, wow, if this guy could create an architectural marvel like the Guarantee Building and Wentworth buildings and Wainwright buildings, I want him to design my tomb. And it was so cool because he used some of his architectural elements inside the tomb, which means that when you see that tomb, you're like, wow. If you know about architecture, you're like, Louis Sullivan designed that tomb, which is cool. He was very versatile. He was Very versatile. In 18, in late 1880s, early 1900s, there was a Chicago fire. And the Chicago fire was a time where the entire city of Chicago burnt down. And Louis Sullivan was one of the architects to go there and start to build up and revitalize the city. And when he built up, that's how he gained all his fame or his fortune. Because everybody was like, wow, we have a city now. So when you go inside, you go to cities like New York City, Chicago, and things like that. Just admire, just look around, just explore your surroundings. And you will see different traits of Louis Sullivan. That was my presentation. I hope you guys have a great day, have a safe trip, and enjoy your day.